Good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Choy, here to provide you with the latest. The Korean government has announced an ambitious plan to attract billions of dollars in new investments to boost the country's tourism industry. The plan includes the construction of 2 new $930 million mega resorts with casinos and other luxury facilities. Our Ji Myung-kil starts us off.
The plan calls for the prompt spending of nearly $16 billion previously earmarked for the development of 4 mega projects and aims to attract more than $7 billion in new investments for the construction of hotels, resorts, and theme parks for a total of $23 billion. The plan was formulated by the Ministries of Finance, Tourism, and Land and other government agencies. One of the 4 mega projects would develop the land in the U.S. Army's Yongsan Garrison in central Seoul. The other projects would develop land once used as the headquarters of Korea Electric Power Corporation, build auxiliary facilities for cogeneration plants in new towns, and expand OLED display assembly lines. To boost the country's tourism industry, the government will build 2 resorts with new investment targets of nearly $930 million each. The resorts will have hotels, conference halls, fine dining, shopping malls, leisure and sports facilities, medical facilities, and casinos, which will only be open to foreign tourists. The government says it will also aim to attract funds to expand the number of hotels nationwide to cope with the increasing number of foreign tourists every year.
We expect some $1 billion to be able to construct 5,000 hotel rooms by 2017.
The government also plans to authorize the opening of 4 new duty-free shops, 3 in Seoul and 1 on Jeju Island. In addition, the government hopes to designate 6 new high-tech centers in urban areas and will provide more than $18 billion this year in the form of loans to innovative tech companies. Ji Myung-kil, Arirang News.
Monday is a big day for all government agencies here in Korea. They will be briefing the president on their plans for the coming year. The presidential office of Cheongwade said Sunday President Park Geun-hye will receive briefings from 15 ministries and 2 government agencies through Friday. Meanwhile, there is growing speculation that President Park could reshuffle her cabinet before the Lunar New Year holiday, which starts February 18th. This follows news last week that the president's approval ratings had dropped to their lowest level since she took office nearly 2 years ago. And North Korea says inter-Korean talks will not happen if South Korea continues its planned military drills with the U.S. The North's state-run paper, the Nodong Shinmun, reported on Sunday that Pyongyang will not hold talks with the South or the U.S. if the annual key resolve and full legal military exercises are held as planned in March. According to the paper, if the drills are cancelled, inter-Korean talks can proceed smoothly and peace and security in Northeast Asia will be ensured. Every year, North Korea calls on Washington and Seoul to cancel the drills, saying they are a rehearsal for a northern invasion. The U.S. and South Korea always say the exercises are purely defensive in nature. North Korea's chief nuclear envoy is meeting with U.S. negotiators and security experts in Singapore in a bid to bring about progress in the impasse over North Korea's nuclear weapons ambitions. North Korea's negotiating team has reportedly shown a willingness to rejoin the long-stalled 6-party talks. Earlier this month, Pyongyang told Washington that it would impose a temporary moratorium on its nuclear tests if Washington were to cancel a series of planned military drills with South Korea this year. The U.S. rejected the proposal as an implicit threat and urged Pyongyang to show its commitment to denuclearization. The meeting in Singapore will continue through Monday. The comedy movie about the fictional assassination attempt on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is apparently selling out on the streets of Myanmar. We're talking about The Interview, and swift sales of bootleg copies of that film have reportedly prompted North Korean officials to try and persuade Myanmar authorities to rid local shops of the film. Our Connie Lee has more.
The comedy, The Interview, is attracting attention once again, this time for its popularity in Myanmar. The movie, about a fictional plot to kill North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, has caused quite the stir, with Pyongyang calling the movie an act of war and the communist state accused of hacking Sony Pictures in retaliation. But now it looks like Pyongyang is trying to stop sales of pirated copies of the movie on the streets of Myanmar. The New York Times has reported that in recent days, the police, sometimes accompanied by North Korean officials, have been visiting DVD shops in Yangon, Myanmar's biggest city, to rid the shops of bootleg copies of the film. According to street vendors and shop owners, as copies of the movie began selling out, with some saying that more than 100 DVDs were sold in a day, the police started a citywide crackdown on sales of the movie and threatened anyone selling it. Now, copies of the movie, which were selling for about $1 for 3, have disappeared from the shelves of large DVD shops and roadside vendors. The report also quotes one DVD seller who says a police officer told her the North Korean embassy in Myanmar had provided a list of shops selling the film. However, Myanmar's information minister and a presidential spokesperson says the crackdown is not targeting a specific movie, but only targeting pirated DVDs. The Interview was released online and in a limited number of theaters in the U.S. at the end of last year. But aside from the bootleg copies, it has not yet officially been released on DVD. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
2014 was a good year for some industries in Korea, but a historic one for Korea's cosmetics industry. Exports jumped more than 50% to $1.92 billion, giving the country its first annual surplus in that sector. Squeezing into the international arena seemed like an impossible challenge for Korean brands at first, with American, French, and Japanese brands firmly established in the minds of global consumers. Korean cosmetics companies are heavily indebted to Hallyu, or the Korean wave. With the stars of popular Korean dramas and music promoting these cosmetic brands, their value skyrocketed. One of the biggest winners was Amoria Pacific. The stock jumped 122% last year on the back of strong exports. And local automakers Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors did not fare well in Europe last year. Data released by the European Automobile Manufacturers Association shows the automakers each saw their market share in the region slip 0.1 percentage points in 2014, coming down to 3.3% and 2.7% respectively. Even with a combined share of 6%, it still wouldn't be enough to keep up with European powerhouses like Volkswagen, PSA Group, Renault, Ford, and BMW. The association cites a weak yen and aggressive marketing and sales efforts by Japanese car makers, including Toyota and Nissan. The two Japanese automakers enjoyed market shares of 4.2% and 3.7% respectively last year. Speaking of Japan, in the political realm, Japan's main opposition Democratic Party has a new leader now. Kazuya Okada, who led the party for 18 months from 2004 to 2005, beat a much younger 43-year-old Goshi Hosono 133 points to 120 in a runoff on Sunday. Okada now faces a huge challenge in reviving the party after a defeat in December's general election. The 61-year-old former deputy prime minister and foreign minister also appears to share some of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economic and defense policies. At a press conference after his victory, he gave Abe credit for the country's economic success and said he agrees that Japan needs to be better prepared for regional conflicts. However, he has been a strong critic of Abe for failing to acknowledge Japan's wartime past, including visits to the Yasukuni War Shrine, and for a widening gap between the rich and poor. Elsewhere around the world, at least 5 people were killed on Saturday in Niger during continued protests against Charlie Hebdo's cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. That brings the death toll to 10. In a televised address, President Muhammadu Issoufou criticized the protesters but said he understands how Muslims could feel offended by caricatures of the Prophet and said freedom of expression should not mean liberty to insult religious beliefs. In other parts of the world, the latest edition of the satirical French magazine is in high demand. 5 million copies were printed instead of the usual 60,000, and the magazine will be translated into 16 languages and distributed across the globe. Yet it may still be difficult to get a copy. A store owner in Montreal, Canada said before this weekend, he had a waiting list with more than 200 names, but his store is expecting just 40 copies. Local researchers have developed a new multi-layer cultivation system that can easily be installed in greenhouses. It is expected to help boost productivity because it uses space more efficiently and costs a fraction of existing systems, which will in turn help farmers increase their income. Our Paul Yi has more.
This is a high-tech plant factory in Korea established in 2011. The environmental conditions in this room are regulated by automated systems. They control the indoor temperature as well as the amount of light, carbon dioxide, and nutrient solution levels. Plants can grow all year round without being influenced by external factors. But the problem is the high installation price, which can be up to $1,500 per square meter. Now, local developers have come up with a more affordable cultivation system that allows them to grow fresh lettuce in so-called tri-level beds. The lettuce growing on the top layer receives sunlight, while the 2 layers below get additional light from special fluorescent lamps to supplement the solar energy. The cost is 1/8 of that of the older plant factory at only $180 per square meter. Productivity, on the other hand, is 4 times higher than at regular greenhouses with hydroponic systems.
The system is easy and simple to install inside greenhouses, and the plants grow well because they can receive sunlight.
The researchers aim to install the system at regular farms once they prove its economic feasibility by testing it with crops other than lettuce. Their hope is that it will contribute to boosting farmers' income in the long run. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And now the weather. If you're in Seoul, do be careful during your morning commutes as overnight snow will leave the roads and pavements wet and slippery. Well, for the time being, this winter is proving to be quite a merciful one here in Korea, with the mercury staying well above zero for the most parts of this week. And now let's check out the weather conditions outside of Korea, around the world. Well, that's all from us for today. Thank you for watching. Do have a great start to your week.